Go ahead. All right, we'll call January 23rd meeting of the Emergency Services Facilities Building Committee to order at 6. We've got there,
50.
6:50. Sorry, we're a little late. Our chairman is among missing. And we're gonna proceed without him. Seated for tonight's meeting. Myself, Britt is online. Tom Schneider. Mike McCoo, James Knight. Dan's not here. Unless here. Peter Latinsik. Ron Gantic. Tyler Millix and Stu Crow. The first item on our agenda is approval of minutes. We have actually 3 sets. December 12th, 2024. June 13th, 2024, and May 3rd. Have any comments, corrections on the minutes? Do you want to do them one at a time or do them myself?
Well, I had a chance to look at you. That's your what I have. Right. So,
Anyone else?
I wasn't here for December, so I would have to abstain on that, but the other one seems okay.
Looked at all 3, they seemed okay to me.
Entertain a motion to approve.
second.
Motion to approve.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions? Just approve.
Partial.
Technically need to do a roll. Well, actually, tonight there's really not a lot in address. All right, item 4, president to speak. Let's shoot for that. Anyone see anyone in the room here that has inclination to speak? Anyone on the line?
Freya, you're able to hear us, right? Yeah, okay.
We have no way of seeing you raised hand, do we, Mike?
I think it would show up here. But we're not seeing them, we're not seeing their little tiles.
I do not see any raised hands, the little yellow raised hands on James or Jennifer, so we should be okay.
Okay,
Freya, are you seeing them all in tiles?
Yes,
Okay, because we're just seeing, all we can see is a list on the screen. We can't see the tile. We're having, I know it's a
hey
surprise.
Zoom.
We're having some sort of Zoom glitch.
All right, I'll keep an eye on for the hands raised, but I'm not seeing any at the moment.
Thank you.
okay, thanks, Brett. Okay. Hearing, seeing nothing there. Old business. Station 13, we know where that stands, that's on hold for now. 5B. Well, there's an ongoing analysis of current and future emergency service and fire department facilities needs. And we can table that to the consultants on board, which he is. Speaking of the consultant, I did talk with Steve this afternoon. And
Steve is who?
Steve Knight with Fitch and Associates.
Okay.
I had asked him if he wanted to pop into our meeting via Zoom tonight, just to introduce himself and everyone could get a chance to see who's working for us. And I get a time conflict tonight, so he's not gonna be here. He did ask if we wanted to do a kickoff meeting next Thursday. And I'm not sure what next week's meeting schedule looks like for everyone, but I will send out an email to everyone to see whether night and time works best for you.
Is he coming here or?
I don't know whether it would be here or via Zoom.
If I remember right, what they said with the initial kickoff would be on Zoom, just to kind of get the connections made and all that, that it wasn't worth the trip to come for the
Oh,
first
sure.
introduction. But that from that meeting would set the first
In person.
in-person meeting.
Okay, well, I'll poll everybody and see what,
And I understand from I talked to the chairman last week and he said the contract is signed. And all the different signatures are done.
yeah, I think the only thing missing was the first check for the consultant, and that's up front.
Yeah, he said
I
that
don't know if that's worked out yet.
he was working with First Selectman Tanaka and Donna from the business office to get the business side lined up.
So that's where we stand with our consultant. Back to old business. Item C, unresolved for now, other than the OSHA issue. And what do you think about that?
The OSHA, Alex Doctor?
Yeah, we met with OSHA via Zoom. Last week, yeah, Thursday, we had the closeout meeting. They ended up reducing our fines 40%.
Good,
They,
no fine's good, but.
Yeah.
No fine would be better.
it could be better. They extended all our times so we can get everything done. They were gracious with that.
Good.
It was their idea. So, we have a consultant coming out from OSHA to kind of look at the letter. They didn't want us, they don't like the exhaust situation in the building. So they have a consultant to see if he can help us figure it out.
At no charge?
At no charge. At no charge.
That's always good.
So that's what we're staying with that.
Was the exhaust situation in the OSHA report that was presented to the Board of Finance?
No, it
No.
was just a letter that they recommend we do something with it. We were not fined for that.
Okay, all right, good.
Okay. Inventory list, call records, department starters, handbook, mission statements, so I'm assuming that Steve, maybe our pension associates would be looking for that information as well. And it would be my preference that the committee have the same information that the consultant getting.
You know, we don't, none that's been turned into you?
No, I have not seen anything on it.
Sorry, Ralph, what are you referring to?
Equipment inventory,
Oh, yes,
All records.
sorry, I.
starters, item 5D on the agenda.
I think this comes up every meeting, and I think I don't remember which quantity of it, but I know some of it has been submitted, and I just think maybe because the chairman's not here, we can't get that inventory, but I feel like we've been over this already,
Yes, we
right,
have.
chief?
I think we turned some of it, but not all of it. Like, I'm not sure about it. I think our inventory list get turned in. But
Yeah, I think we just did an update on our SOPs, and I don't think, or bylaws, I mean, and I don't think the new version has been sent in.
No, and the last I knew, there was a newer contract with the town than what I have a copy of.
Hasn't changed.
Yeah, I think
It's the same contract, just gets re-signed.
I understand, but I just want to make sure there was a couple of typos.
There's been
Copy that I
There's
had.
been no amendments or modifications.
I assure you, to be historically accurate, we've kept the typos.
Okay,
There's like literally no change. I think there's just more signatures on the
so
bottom.
we just kept the typo.
I'm pretty sure that's,
Just new signatures.
I think there were 2 part 7s or something like that.
they probably still are.
Press release, we're not. That's item 5E. Much progress to report yet, so we're gonna have to start working on. And then public interface here, keep them up to date, keep the public up to date.
Well, were we supposed to get from both departments the call summary or college?
I think we're waiting for the consultant to find out exactly what records he needs. As opposed to generating something that may not be in the format that he needs. So it's,
I just, if there's an item that was on old business last week that's still up in the air. I just maintain it on the agenda, just so we don't lose sight of everything. I mean, that's my preferred policy.
It is our consultant, but kind of like in a fact gathering mode right now. Getting more information from both departments.
I think they haven't started.
Probably waiting for a signed contract.
Yeah,
and check.
payment. Yeah.
He's done anything yet.
That's where we stand there. I think that's it for old business unless anyone has anything to add. New business, I was hoping we could introduce Steve Knight tonight with Fitch and Associates. He's one of the principals. And as I said earlier, he's not gonna be able to return, so we will work on a special meeting for kickoff meeting. And what I was talking about earlier, I'll poll everybody to see what works. The other, Andy wanted to do this, our chairperson wanted to do a motion to include Steve Knight of Fitch and Associates on our email list for vendors and minutes. Want the committee to formally approve that?
So moved.
I think it's public record anyway. I think it's just a formality. To keep Andy happy, would anyone like to make that?
I did, I said so moved.
Second.
Yeah, here we go. Any, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Stay, okay. Yeah, any thoughts on? All right, more immediate needs. Chiefs. Past chief, any immediate needs that you guys can come up with that are outside of what our consultants going to be working on? That you can think of.
At this point, no, I
Okay.
think we're pretty good, we're on track, we gotta see what they start with.
Perhaps we should review what's been submitted to CIP. There are some building projects in there, and all requests for funds. Like, some about a roof for Station 49 and something like that.
Well, actually, there was a letter from Jim Marshall to the board. He wants participation at next week's CIP meeting, with two departments, two presentations.
From the departments or from this committee?
You and Andy.
Yeah,
along
I
with
saw
the
that,
departments.
yeah, that was gonna bring that up,
Yeah, so
somewhere in here. Those are being submitted.
So Tom, you had what, the roof and the parking lot?
Yeah, the roof and parking lot are submit for CIP at 24 Old Farms Road. The roof is fairly new, but we've explained a couple of small leaks and they did an inspection, there's some soft spots on the roof. And it was overlaid probably 20 years ago, like. So I did put in money, we got one quote so far, working on more. It's about 70 grand to replace the whole roof. And fix the plywood underneath, so that's the first quote we have. The parking lot is an old request, but it was requested a long time ago and the funding was nowhere near enough. It was put in by, I think, the previous. By Derek. Previous Public Works, he looked at it and said, this is about how much it'll be. That money, that's the number they got submitted. It went through a whole bunch of problems and loopholes and it's still sitting there, that money. So we put some more money in to make it to where we think we could do the complete parking lot in addition to the money that's already approved for it, so.
What years are those in? I can't remember.
The roof, I believe we put in for year 2 and the parking lot. I have to look at it, I don't remember.
Not a big deal, we can
Yeah.
come back to it.
Thrown into play, I think year 2 and 3 maybe. Of the CIP plan.
So neither of them are in the upcoming year.
No,
This coming July 1st. Which allows this process to keep going.
to your email, you got it there.
Well, that makes sense. Those are two things on your CIP plan, so you're submitting CIP.
Building related. facility related.
What we putting in for the exhaust system?
At 13,
213.
213, yeah.
So did you have money in there for design, planning, or survey, or?
Yeah, in talking with Chief Moritz, we had 200,000 that's been talked about all over town here.
Right.
And we left it in there, in the CIP plans, with the thought that we discussed it with the CIP committee at this point, that our thought is it should go to this board, basically, or this board should have a CIP request. Because I think right after this Fitch Associates is done with their consulting, we're gonna need something.
Yes.
We're gonna need some kind of planning, some kind of engineering, some kind of drawings and stuff like that, so I left it in there for that discussion. I did, again, it's under Wellington Hill Fire Department, but that's where it originated, and it's been in there, so I left it there. And then, of course, the money for firehouses between the two fire departments. We discussed increasing it, put 15 million on there for the two projects, and left it in CIP as well as a dual submission from both departments.
And hopefully, as this study gets underway.
Yeah, it'll clarify all this stuff that we're leaving in the plan, hopefully. so-
Right.
Because that's what we're here for.
And the other thing is, at some point, as Fish works through their process, we will. And Mike, you know this from the school building committee, at some point, we should get an owner's project manager to help us with actually putting some hard numbers on what the recommendations shake out to be. I don't know if we're ready to do that immediately, but,
So I think we have that in as agenda item F for new business. I think we should talk more at that point about that topic.
our kickoff meeting again, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, fine, I'm sorry. We're just discussing it. Yeah.
All right. Item C under 6. I have not spent any time on this. I want to get a good sense, and I haven't had a long enough conversation with Mr. Knight or Steve Knight, Fitch to figure out what their game plan is. I would like to know what that is as soon as we get going.
Yeah, I've been thinking, right, I've been thinking about this, and I think the two things we need are, we probably need some initial guidance or. I don't know, whatever we wanna call it from this committee, but we also really need to know what he needs for the kickoff meeting, since he's the one who does this.
Yeah,
Right.
He's gotta tell us what he needs for the kickoff meeting, and then it'll probably not be super deep for the kickoff. And then he'll hopefully instruct us from the kickoff meeting on where to go next. But I think we have all talked here before, and many conversations outside this committee and around town and everywhere else have centered around the fact that most of us are familiar with situations where consultants are brought in, sometimes with good intent, to be used to confirm a certain idea. And we, I think on this committee, have all been clear that we want the consultant to be the subject matter expert that helps guide us. And that they should consider all the opinions, and they should consider what people want confirmed, only as it is information for their study. But they should not come in here trying to interpret a particular direction that we want them to justify. We want them to say, this is our expert opinion on what direction this should go.
What should be rather.
Right, so respect the varied opinions, respect the fact that there are sometimes competing interests. But not try to have a bias to validate a certain one.
In the end, I think we need to see a prioritized list, a comprehensive prioritized list and a methodology behind it. For people to act on, whether it's, operational or.
The list from them, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
I want a sheet of paper from them, so these are all the issues that we have, this is what you need to do to solve them, and this is number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. And put some years and dates next to it, that's what I expect out of them.
Yeah, and that's what CIP is looking for.
That's the roadmap everyone's looking for.
Okay. under new business, item E. No, excuse me, D, that's moved, I can take that one off,
That's past us now, yeah.
yeah. Item E was this grant for emergency services, which I don't think we're gonna qualify for. Because my understanding. What little I know about that is we had to have something shovel ready.
Yeah, I don't know too much about it. I was involved in the very initial,
Mike Demano
yeah.
had something to do with that. I don't think.
I think he worked pretty closely with Chief Moore, so he might have more details, but. He's not here tonight. so I
Unless he's
can't.
not here for me, so.
Did you hear?
So I don't know where that goes.
It's all good.
We did touch on the owner's project manager, Mike, you wanna elaborate? Did you already?
Well, I think a few people have mentioned it, and I see that Jim Marshall's here, and he is now the chair on CIP. I know this has been a particular topic of concern for him, and I think somewhere along in this process, an OPM is potentially gonna be valuable for us. I think it's too soon to be bringing someone on, but it isn't
No, I-
necessarily too soon to be starting to put ideas together. The thing is, we don't know. We don't know all of the particulars, right? We know a certain amount of particulars that we are probably gonna need someone to help us navigate the solutions. But we have so little idea what the solutions are.
Right,
How do we
Exactly.
figure out the scope of work?
tackle the,
And
yeah,
what if the study says something that we're not anticipating? And how are we gonna ask the taxpayers for money? How are we gonna send out an RFP when we just don't know enough yet?
No argument for me on that. I just don't wanna lose sight of the fact that I think that's a valuable person to have assistance with this process.
I just don't think we can ask the taxpayers for money yet when we can't tell them what the OPM would do. What if the consultant comes back and says, look, I found this miracle cure, all 3 of your stations are perfect. And we don't need to do construction. I know it's ridiculous, but come on.
I know.
But just, they say something unexpected and we don't need an OPM, or we need an OPM to go a completely different direction from what we thought. We just don't have enough, we don't have enough understanding yet.
So that should be one of the items to discuss with Fitch.
I think we need to
Once
keep
we
it
know what the
close.
roadmap is.
Yeah.
Okay,
Cause our owner's project manager needs a project to manage.
they'll need at least a general ballpark
Something.
scope of
Right.
what project they're gonna be managing, a
Construction.
$50,000
Well,
reno.
and it can be
versus-
designed too. An owner's project manager can help you early on in helping to come up with a design path or, you know, whatever, but it's not. It's not gonna be,
The earlier you bring them in, the more expensive it is, and like the more you're paying them for, right? So.
yeah, cause we don't have a
Exactly.
path to put them on.
Right,
So it's gonna be another expense we're gonna have to.
Is it okay to entertain, to let Mr. Marshall speak?
I
Mr.
just
Chairman?
wanna add, Mike, before you do that, I think it is premature. Until we know what our operational requirements are, how can we possibly know whether we need additional buildings, infrastructure or whatever, and we need the consultant to weigh in on that.
Right, and we can't pick the right consultant if we don't know what work they're gonna do for us.
And we're far away from that because he hasn't even looked at this yet.
It isn't started yet. Consultant hasn't started yet.
All right, Jim, go ahead. I'll
Hi,
let you
guys.
go on.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent, thanks. Thanks for humoring me. Yeah, I'd actually have the complete opposite opinion. Said it before, but quite frankly, the owner's project manager should have been the committee's first step, in my personal opinion. And quite frankly, largely in part because they could help you manage and guide the process with Fitch and Associates related to the station location study and help move things along either via contractual, and them a kickoff meeting, organizing a kickoff meeting, identifying potential long-term issues they should be helping you address. Organizers that help you really put a focus and manage that effort. So contrary to what what I'm hearing here, my recommendation would still be to get somebody on board now so they can be engaged while Fitz and Associates is performing their process. Because quite frankly, you'll get a lot more out of Fitz and Associates if you have an OPM guiding you. That's about all I can say on that front. And I appreciate you guys, all your abilities to, help relay your current status next week before the CIP committee updates as to the total capital bonding picture, requests, et cetera, et cetera. because the committee is really gonna be looking at your guidance and identifying an overall schedule so that we can plan accordingly. That's all I got. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks. Welcome, Mr. Chairman.
Another
Thank
thing
you.
to consider with the OPM is that historically, the Board of Finance has not been hugely in favor of hiring them. I know that the school board was looking to get a project manager to oversee the renovations on the 2 schools, and that one was very soundly challenged by the board. So just to keep that in mind.
Why can't we perform that function?
For free, right, like, I mean, like, I feel like we're getting so much pushback for even just this consultant payment, that why would you then wanna pay someone for doing?
Right,
Yeah,
essentially what we're
no.
doing? Obviously, at some point, yes, you'll need like the more, but like-
actually agree right now.
Yeah, no disrespect to Jim's opinion
Absolutely.
at all, and he's got a lot of experience in this field, but. I think we're gonna have a hard time getting the taxpayers to support us
Funding
hiring a
behind that.
consultant to help us talk to our consultant that they're also paying for. I think we're early enough that I don't see how we justify.
not yet, yes, but not yet.
I don't wanna.
Hire a consultant, deal with our consultant.
Yeah, all right, then give me a little bit on the answer.
Absolutely, just not yet.
Totally.
So the summary of the conversation though seems to be, we know this is potentially important and we should keep it close in our thoughts.
Yes, exactly. That's my goal as far as keeping it on that item on the agenda. It's just, let's not lose sight of the fact that this is a person or an entity that's going to help us. Once we know where we're going.
We also need to keep in mind that right now. And this doesn't mean that it was a good planning thing, but the fact of the matter is, with all good intent, we have money right now for this consultant and a contract. We do not have money to hire an OPM to talk to this consultant. So. I don't think the cart is before the horse. I think we're okay, and we don't have another option at the moment,
I agree.
right? So I mean, we couldn't even get money for an OPM until July 1. Or a special town meeting.
Effectively steer the ship.
If I may jump in again, Mike, I mean, the CIP committee gave this committee $200,000 to advance the efforts. You have $200,000 approved at town meeting already. The CIP
Yes.
plan to motor,
Yeah.
and yes, you'll have to go back before them again, but the whole purpose of that funding was to advance this process and as expeditiously as possible. And we're a year in now, we still haven't started a study. So it's the only reason I'm pushing for an OPM. Because the ball really needs to start moving faster because time costs money. Every year you guys wait on a $15 million bond, that's $750,000 of additional costs just from escalation. We can't this out. So I just encourage you guys to move it along as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Respecting that opinion, I think we all wanna move it along.
I think we do, but I would add to that, the Board of Finance expressed a strong interest in what our consultant was gonna recommend. I think there's a keen interest in that, what our direction is, and once we have that. And discuss it as a committee, we'll be in a better position to just take the next step.
To justify it.
Well, we don't even know if we know something has to be done with Station 13. We don't know yet whether the location study.
Right, what is the level, what is the level of that work gonna be? Right.
Correct.
How is that station going to be equipped? What will happen to Station 49? What will happen to 213?
How was consultant view the 2 departments and their capabilities, resources? So, we're all very interested in that, so the sooner he gets going, the better.
My advice.
And the Board of Finance can ignore the entire study and do whatever they want anyway.
Oh, wait, that would always happen. Historically, that's not happened.
Or should we go,
No offense.
for the benefit of the chairman, should we go back to the concept of speaking to CIP next week? We should go back to that
Oh, yes.
conversation.
Well, I was gonna
probably.
bring that up under correspondence now,
Oh. Excellent,
since
seems like a great place for it.
Andy got the same email. Did you not?
I did, but I didn't look at it.
CIP is requesting that a representative from this committee be available to attend their January 29th meeting alongside Chief Snyder and Chief Moore.
Oh, sure. You okay with that, chiefs? Absolutely. Okay,
Well, they're already in.
no, I know, but I mean, okay with somebody from
Having a sidekick.
having a sidekick.
Do you want to tackle that one?
I don't know, do you?
What's the plan? What day of the week is that?
Tuesday.
Wednesday. I think, I mean, the more the better, really, just because
Yeah.
this is a body of knowledge, not, and the knowledge isn't just with all one person. Definitely. I think the general idea is for fiscal year 25-26 is what they're talking about,
What they're looking
year
at.
one. Will this committee require any money?
Yes.
Because
How much?
Unknown.
Because there's nothing written in stone that unspent funds gets rolled over forever to be spent. And I think the parking lot money has been disappeared and gone back into the pile from the 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
Yeah,
whatever
no,
it was.
it's still available.
Yeah, we,
And depending on who you talk to, and the repurpose of the money that Board of Finance has available this year for us turned into a planning money only at some point. So that's why but they want requests not to come from the fire departments, they want it to come from this body tonight. Of, if you think you're gonna need money next year to be a fire project manager or draw plans or whatever that needs to be done, that request needs to come from this committee. To be passed on to the CIP plan.
What's the absolute deadline for CIP for something like that, you know?
Submission's already closed, but there was a petition in there for it, the generic one. And the CIP review for emergency services is next Wednesday.
What do they go? I mean, because doesn't Fitch have 90 days for 120?
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Is we can't wait 90 days to.
But we also had discussion amongst the group here that I think there was general consensus to expedite, put most things on the back burner regarding the study and expedite the location study and the facility studies. And I guess my question is, if we can get them focused on that initially and provide some generalized numbers or ideas for what we would need for 25-26. Would it behoove us to push Fitch in that direction? From the get.
so I feel like this is similar to the OPM thing. We kind of know we need it. It's hard for us to figure out what it is right now, but we're in this time crunch too because of the
I
CIP
can't imagine
and budget
taking-
process.
I can't imagine them taking months and months to determine a location study for the.
Yeah,
house.
I mean, I think-
What physical needs are needed.
And they've done this before, Fitch and Associates have done this before, so they probably know, like you said, what you should ask for right off the bat.
Yeah,
And
there's-
if that's one of our first questions.
There's a formula they go by from construction perspective, they'll be able to spit that number.
But I believe CIP, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, is. Has to submit to the Board of Selectmen
That's
the
what,
plan by the end of February.
that's what I'm looking for, okay,
We're not gonna have it done by February.
Right.
Then the selectmen take it and pass it to the Board of Finance.
yeah.
And I don't think it's gonna be,
Sorry, Stu, our drop dead is March 19th. We're before the Board of Finance with CIP on the 20th of March. The reality is we're wrapping to have all the presentations done by mid-February to the greatest extent we can. Obviously, we'll have a couple of weeks of massaging and reviewing the plan before the committee approves years 1 through 5. But I will say, just to kind of supplement Stu's discussion, from my perspective, and we can address it as a committee as well, you guys have, again, $200,000 available to you for engineering, planning, and services in CIP. I'm not anticipating any additional requests from the committee for planning purposes, because you have that money available to you. You could ask for it all now from Board of Finance so that you could do your work. You'd have to go before town meeting and get it approved by the town, but you have that funding available. So what we're really looking to have you kind of come in and discuss is updates to where you stand, because last year, this was even your committee was very much a nebulous idea. But get an understanding of what the overall project schedule is, how far out you guys even anticipate any potential new bonding or construction, so that we can start to come up with a long-term plan for potentially funding it. You know, we're here to support you guys and try to get you what you want. But to a certain degree, you know, we're reacting to your information. So I know you're still just getting Fitch and Associates going, but for that plan, any updates regarding work plan, long-term schedule needs, in addition to description on any capital requests, would all be very welcome for the committee, because quite frankly, it's one of the work on these stations is one of the two big tent poles and what we're struggling to try to fund. So that's why I
Jim?
think it's critical for you guys to be at the table.
Jim,
Yeah,
question
go
for
ahead,
you.
Sure.
This, the request you're talking about in the meeting, have you run that through the Board of Selectmen again? Because I'm not trying to get too hung up on procedure, but this committee is not a budget submitting organization. So this committee would not typically be a CIP submitting organization. We're a subcommittee, just as CIP is a committee that advises the Board of Selectmen. We are a committee that advises the Board of Selectmen. So it really technically would be us making a recommendation to the selectmen. The selectmen would then make the request to CIP to talk about the official process.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, Mike, you guys, this committee is the one that's in charge of making the recommendations for what the town is going to be asked to support from a capital perspective to improve your facilities. We're looking for your
to the Board of Selectmen.
To the Board of Selectmen, correct? But you know, the Board of Selectmen is relying on you. So if you want to relay information to the Board of Selectmen, that's great. But I think it's all better if we converse together and have you guys literally talk to the committee and relay your progress directly. Otherwise,
Not
we're asking
suggesting.
yeah.
I'm not
So-
suggesting that we play good in the sand. What I'm saying is that did CIP ask the Board of Selectmen for this? Because that would be the proper procedure.
The chair of your committee is a member of the Board of Selectmen, so he is aware of our request to you. And he can
Just
relay
answer
that
that.
information and discuss it.
Ask the Board of Selectmen for this, yes or no? It's a simple question.
Would you like me to ask the Board of Selectmen for this, Mike?
Where's the Board of Selectmen, yes or no? I'll take it as a no.
I
Alright.
did not. I assumed the selectmen you have running your committee would be able to relay to his other selectmen members, Mike. You literally have a board of a representative from the Board of Selectmen as your chair. This is
I
a
am-
little bit ridiculous, Mike, and you know, it's frustrating when we should all be working together. This is what we're trying to do. So
Thank you.
I look forward to talking with you next week. Thank you, guys.
Alright,
Tom, last fiscal year, didn't you have?
let me just finish, sorry,
Okay.
Stuart. Can you just make sure to check in with the board or
We have a
with
special,
he,
we have a special meeting on Monday. I
Yeah, and
will
just-
bring it up.
And
tell them
the,
that they would like us to report directly? I think it's a great idea for us to participate.
Absolutely.
I just procedurally, we should just make sure the board knows that we're gonna represent them, basically.
Well,
At CIP.
and the first
It's-
selectman was at
it's
the
chill.
CIP meeting last night.
Well, there you go, alright.
Right, but I mean, still, request should be formal, as we've been chastised many times by the public, that when we don't follow procedures.
Yep.
It causes
I
distrust.
definitely
it's like a
think we
lack of
need to be there.
transparency.
I think we need to be there and should have the
Absolutely.
conversation
Yes.
and,
But the request should be formal and go through private channels, absolutely. So, but yeah, I'll bring it up on Monday at 4 P.M.
I have one question for Tom. Last fiscal year, didn't Wellington Hill have some money assigned and approved by CIP process to do some surveying and things like that? And the Board of Finance would not release the money?
Correct.
yes.
And it turned into, I believe, that's part of the 200,000.
Yeah, I think so, I think they got rolled up
That's
in
part of the 200,000 that just got moved.
I think, I'm not sure that's true because it was in the existing fiscal year already, and I think I spoke at a meeting that the CIP could not roll money that was approved by the town in the operating budget in that year that was already in play. They couldn't roll it into a new CIP item because it was already approved
But
by
they
the
wouldn't let you spend
taxpayers.
it either.
No, right.
But right, so the money, so to Stuart's point, the money is still out there.
Yeah, it wasn't.
It needs to get pulled back into something, and that might be.
Good thing to talk about with CIP.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why, again, part of.
And that would be a function of Board of Finance to reassign money that's already been approved by the taxpayers.
Yeah,
It's
well,
over 20,000, would have to go to a town meeting again, that's why.
And the Board of Finance wouldn't ask the selectmen for a town meeting.
Well, that has to.
So,
The thing that's on my mind that may become part of the purview of this committee, just because, I think the first selectman would like it that way, is if indeed this other grant comes through, that Mike D'Amato put through, there would be as at least the understanding is, there would be some sort of participation from the town as well. That they're not just gonna give the money. I don't think
I
it's,
think you're right. My recollection is that for us to secure those funds.
right,
We have to have some semblance of a plan, dare I say it.
Right.
And
and maybe that could come out of that $200 bucket, $200,000 bucket, I don't know. But,
you know,
it's something just that maybe, I think that I'd like, if you don't mind, I'd like to bring that up at that CIP meeting, that this is an X factor that we don't know what the rules are
and
yet.
Andy, wasn't some of that funding that might potentially secured or sort of secured possibly of use for Station 13, which is in need of it?
It's,
You know, so-
it's vague enough, it simply says for construction for Wellington
We're
Fire.
far away from building it. Could those funds be used to potentially
Right, so
resolve
that's a
our-
question, those aren't a question for CIP.
It's tied to.
If you need a CIP project to go along with it, that's for CIP.
Right.
That's a question back to like Mike D'Amato or the selectman's office on what are the rules of the grant.
And we don't know that yet.
That would.
We need the rules of the grant to know
Quarterback that.
Well, that's what I'm sort of talking about. is
Then we know what project.
I want to quarterback
Put
it,
that.
but again, just like this consultant, it's a nebulous thing that if it happens, we will have a time frame to do it, and knowing how this process works. I almost want to prep the ground to say, I think we're gonna need this amount of money to respond effectively.
Did the final approval come through for that? grant?
No, it's still
I think
out
it was
there.
still, it looks good.
But
Yeah.
Congress
Yeah, that's-
was
that's the
acting
last I
supposedly,
Yeah,
remember?
but
And those funds were being released.
Yeah, which will come with guidance.
You have to keep in mind, it's an EOC grant,
Right.
so
Right.
how the language is.
Right.
In that award is extremely important.
Yes.
And the language will not come until the award is. awarded.
Right.
Because that's one of the things they fight about is what the language is that goes in it.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're not gonna know anything until you see the final language and what latitude you have in the implementation of that.
Right, since this is a federal grant, I imagine Congress has a lot of other things on their minds right at the moment. And not Wellington, emergency services, but I'm just guessing. But I want to bring it up to the committee about how do we handle something like that to the CIP, say what happens with this? That we may have a short time frame to respond. That, how do we do something, whatever, and I don't know the answer, so I'll stop talking about it. But if somebody would like to be there, I'd like to go to that CIP meeting, if someone else from the committee would like to be there, that would besides our chiefs. Cause they're gonna be sort of playing a different role with that.
I think guidance from selectmen will be really important because we don't know what to ask for.
I will find.
But to CIP's needs and to Jim's needs. If we think we're gonna need something in
Yeah.
25, 26, we gotta hurry up and
ask,
put a
yeah.
number on it.
Exactly, we gotta.
So the selectmen in the end are gonna take responsibility for that.
All right,
So maybe you can get some guidance on Monday. To say, you know, we think we should put a placeholder of this size in, or whatever,
yeah, okay.
and then you can talk about it
yeah,
Thursday.
I think that's a good idea. I will do that.
I'll attend that meeting with you if you want.
I would like that.
Okay. Moving on, anything else under new business? What's on the agenda? I don't have anything. Correspondence, we kind of talked about, that was the email from the chair of CIP to the town meeting on the 29th.
All right.
That's the only correspondence I'm aware of.
Well, I'll add to that, some verbal correspondence, bumping into Tammy Nuccio, she's pursuing further the acquisition of the property at Station 13.
The DOT land?
Yes,
Good.
so that's in progress with her and Jeff Gordon.
Would be helpful in any future planning. If Station 13 doesn't disappear because the facility study says we don't need it there, which I find comfortable.
Unlikely.
It's not usually a mistake to
Get more.
get more land.
Yeah.
No,
No,
It's pretty rarely that that's a mistake.
especially in a site like that, it needs a little bit more flat area.
Right.
Okay, moving on to item 8, present to speak. Anyone?
yeah, me, I have a question. What do I do to get, anybody have any experience with working with consultants and the town to say, okay, What do we do next? Do we cut this guy a check? His job one, he had a deliverable. Along with the first payment, but how do we, did we talk about that? How are we gonna meet this guy? What are we gonna do? I don't know.
That's not specified in, well, what's the deliverable comes for the first check, right? Like if, we don't
That's
send
the
him
way I
money
read
until the
that, so-
deliverable.
But I think we need to have a consultant meeting. How do you wanna handle that? You wanna do it as a group?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, so,
Well, is that kind of
it can't be unwieldy.
weeks and weeks out?
Well, do it on Zoom, I don't care.
Yeah, Ralph
I
mentioned.
mean, but in
next
terms
week.
of authorizing the payment on.
No, I get that.
Okay, so
Selectmen
I
can do
invited
that?
Steve
The payment.
tonight,
So yeah, right,
and he can't make it because of a conflict.
but you are gonna include him on the distribution for the agenda?
Yes, we already,
Yeah, yeah, that's good.
we already covered that
All
one.
right, so what do we do now?
He wants a kickoff meeting sometime next week.
Great,
so Andy, the contract's signed, right?
contract signed by all
And it
parties.
probably has parameters in it that the first payment is due once this amount of work is completed,
Something
right?
like that, I don't remember.
So no work is completed yet.
Right,
Well,
So-
it could be 1/3 upon execution.
no, it's there were 4 payments and it made sense, we went
Yeah,
over it
it
again.
was-
Seemed like, and each one had a sort of measurable deliverable, which I
Yeah.
thought was good. And,
But sometimes there's an upfront.
So-
retainer too.
it didn't seem.
Yeah, I don't think from what you described on the phone, it was work then the first payment.
That's not what,
So-
yeah, that's not the way it said in the contract.
So let's get to the kickoff meeting.
Great,
And we can ask him that question, if there's clarity from what's written in the contract, maybe we should share the contract with the committee now that's signed. It's a public document anyway.
and I didn't, all right, I didn't get that out,
No, when we talked on the phone, you said you were gonna email it out,
and I
but.
never did,
No.
that sounds so much like me.
So if we see the contract, we'll all have more
Great,
wisdom maybe.
I'll send it out as soon as I get home tonight. And could we, so I mean, the first meeting will be likely a Zoom meeting, or,
Yes,
Yeah, the kickoff, yeah.
and we can do that sitting in our homes if we have a good link.
works for me.
We were talking earlier that we had faith that because he's the pro at doing this, he's gonna start off with that meeting saying, all right, here's what we need to do to get going. And that'll help us get our marching orders right out of that.
Well, then we just communicate using using Outlook, and if everybody, whoever can make it to that meeting, great. If you can't, we'll fill you in. Is that comfortable for everybody?
The kickoff
Yeah.
meeting doesn't need to be like public, right?
It's a if it goes over quorum, it's a meeting,
Then,
whether it's on Zoom or anything.
but it doesn't have to be like in a public place, it can be like.
It can be on.
Zoom
Zoom.
only.
As long as it's
Zoom only.
noticed.
As long as it's noticed. Okay, so we can prep that ground. So as we know the date.
You have a special meeting on the 27th, Monday?
Yes.
Or
Selectmen,
Yeah,
4 P.M.
Special meeting? Or
Yes, Monday.
And then Wednesday CIP.
Wednesday CIP, Tuesday the 28th would actually be the ideal day to meet with, to have the kickoff with Pitch.
prior to the CIP, you mean?
Prior to CIP, would kind of give us a better understanding, I would think, of.
Well, we can't notice it in time.
I would say you can't get notice out in time,
Yeah, because town hall's closed tomorrow.
right?
We run it down.
Maybe we'll have fights for it.
The Friday's off, yeah,
Well, it was a day.
yeah, and a whole weekend.
You know, the business offices. Those guys work.
Yeah, the finance office.
Finance
It's
office.
5 days a week, yeah.
So is the town hall really closed?
Yeah, but the
I know.
registering it with the clerk.
We tried that.
Ralph, they talked about Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's after CIP, but still, I mean,
Yeah.
he's not, I don't feel like at the kickoff meeting, he's gonna be able to give anyone like
It's not
kind
gonna
of
affect
concrete
CIP.
number, or any of that anyway.
I was just thinking, you know, should it happen before CIP or?
Ideally, yes,
Ideally, but-
Doesn't work, so.
We're out of days.
All right.
Yeah. Well, see if
Thursday.
see if Steve another night, so see if maybe you guys are related.
Maybe,
The family
I
discount.
don't think so.
Find out if you can do Thursday, right?
I think he can do late, I was still concerned about earlier. I'll,
So we'd have to have the Zoom link up by. It would be ideal if he could send us a Zoom link that we all then attached to, I think, wouldn't that be?
No, you want the town to do the
We
Zoom
want
thing
the
because
town
it's
to
a
do-
public meeting.
Yeah.
And you don't want the townspeople using his Zoom. You want the townspeople using
want
the
like
town's.
the-
Alright, so it has to be a town meeting, because.
Yeah, because it's gonna get recorded in the town's record keeping and all that, so it should be the town's.
So you might as well call a meeting for
Yeah,
here,
we
for
actually
anybody
have
who wants to
to-
show up.
all right, I will have a conversation with Pitch and poll everybody Well, I think we can do this next.
All right, and we can,
And
yeah.
then
Why
you're
don't we-
saying
why
the
don't we
option is
just-
Thursday or Friday,
Thursday or Thursday.
Thursday or Thursday.
Hey, do we have?
It feels funny that a kickoff.
Why
meeting
couldn't
with a
we do
consultant-
Tuesday again? What was it about Tuesday we couldn't do?
Couldn't
Can't
post it in
remember.
time.
Can't post it in time.
Can't do notice.
Oh, right, because you need 48 hours for the Zoom.
Right.
Actually, the Zoom link for this meeting is the same for the entire year.
Yeah, but it would have, it's a special meeting,
Yeah.
So it's a new agenda.
You're right.
yeah.
Right. And Thursday night is board of finances. Next week.
Oh, in this room?
No, Britt
Chris
says
says
no.
no.
No, Britt says no. She's.
Oh, it's the end of the month, so you wouldn't have.
We're the third Thursday.
Okay,
We were last week.
so we could do it Thursday.
Let's see if we can do it Thursday. We can get this room. I got the key fob now. You guys all get key fobs?
Yes.
You weren't sure about the alarm.
Tom did.
He's the one that got us in.
Oh, yeah, go on.
Do we have, as a group, have a general consensus on what we'd like to have them prioritize out of the gate? I mean, you could have a kickoff meeting, you could have 15 different opinions on what this guy, I mean, I guess I'm looking for a little bit more cohesiveness in
Right.
the room.
Like a
That,
pre,
listen, I understand he's a consultant, but he's not gonna tell us what to do, you can tell him what to do.
Well, I think we'll go to the RFP that went out.
Yeah, we're gonna tell him,
requesting
listen, this is what, we're under somewhat of a time crunch, this is our priorities and what we want you to hit first.
Yeah, so we already have the RFP and we already have their response to it in terms of saying what they would do.
Yeah, we kind of have to have a plan, I think, because you could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you could have 10 people giving him 10 different opinions, and he's not gonna know exactly what direction to move in. I think, I
Oh, do
wanna
they-
make sure we're on the same page.
do they have, do they work with like, I mean, do they prioritize certain
Well,
things
I
versus
mean, their
others, or
work
is it all
plan-
kind of like a,
The work plan for every one of the 5 consultants, they all started with meets and greets, data gathering, and meeting with key stakeholders. All 5 consultants started with that part.
And
So-
we talked about that at the committee, that even though that's what the document said, that we were, I thought, that at least after one meeting, we were somewhat flexible in saying, hey, we wanna kind of shift you over to the location studies and the buildings first, prior to all the call data and the fractile responses, that can come after.
Well, the call data helps do the building stuff.
right, that kind
Well,
of, that
the
data is
locations,
guiding the
I mean, the
location.
membership review, the apparatus, all that,
Oh, yeah.
all the
Yeah.
ancillary things that are in there. Primarily,
Right.
we wanna get the goal out of the way as quickly as we possibly can.
So the first goal of the location study being
Sure.
the first priority,
Yeah.
then
And
that may-
and evaluation of the buildings.
Right, so they may be able to prioritize landing that draft earlier in the process instead of.
As long as we all agree, and that's what we talked about. I don't wanna just go willy-nilly, we have to wait 120 days for a fire station location study. We don't have to wait 120 days for that. That could be one of their first priorities. They could probably have that in 30 to 60 days. You know,
So
unless you wanna just let the thing go and
It
do its
seems to
thing.
me
that's
though,
fine.
that the whole reason why we hired them, everything they're gonna compile is gonna come up with the conclusion, and to separate it, it's not gonna help us any.
So let's ask at the kickoff
Well,
meeting.
you're gonna get some information ahead of time for planning purposes for CIP and for the board of finance.
I don't know.
But to Jim Marshall's point, every year you wait, it's.
Right,
Of course, we wanna expedite everything, you know,
Right.
but
Right, but
but
what
we
if,
also spent 2 years getting here, let's make sure we don't
right,
fumble the football at the goal line.
right, but if he's saying these are the actual locations that work, okay. But this is that, like, then based on those locations, changes with apparatus, changes in membership, changes in the structuring, right?
Location.
So then, right,
I agree.
so like,
Beyond the locations, we need to have an understanding of what our operational capabilities are, what they are now, and then what he recommends based on what he sees.
My only concern is about overly influenced.
is it even I guess the best question is it possible for him to sort of delineate, like, to focus on that? Or does he feel like he can't actually give a good answer? Until he has all. like,
It'll be like building a house.
And evaluation of existing buildings. I don't
Yeah, well,
think
that's
it's-
That I feel like they can prioritize, that's an independent factor.
But that's what we talked about.
That's an independent
That
factor,
was
for
our
sure.
priority was to get that stuff out of the way.
Yes, agree.
Yeah.
It's certainly the existing building, that was, I think we talked about that being a priority.
We did.
Right, but how do you decide what kind of a building you want if you don't talk?
Well, it's an existing building,
If you're gonna
right?
build a house, would you talk to the person like, well, what do you want in your house?
Going back
Yeah,
to.
but if you have a house there already, you're gonna be like, yeah, this house is workable, we can renovate it, or like, no, this house,
I
is
thought
like,
we
it's sort of
wanted
like a
to not
general.
overly influence the consultant.
Right.
So we got sort of an unadulterated
Yeah.
view.
And
So if we start saying, hey, we wanna know what we should do with Station 13, well, that's fine.
It's,
Maybe he doesn't think Station 13 is right, because, well, these guys wanna keep that old building, well, I guess I gotta, maybe that's not what we
It
want.
shouldn't matter what we think.
yeah,
Right.
make it like an
Exactly.
independent
we got-
evaluation
yeah,
of the
everything.
structures.
The town.
Well, and that's certainly fine.
Okay, I see what you're
The
saying.
point is that the group before said this was the priorities. If you want us to let him do his business in accordance with the outline they provided, then that's fine, do it. That's absolutely, okay, we have to, but
Yeah.
it's just different.
Well, we said that our priority was on addressing the emergency at Station 13. Right?
Yes,
And that's why we initially started working on like the mold issue and all that, and then the study. So the study, I don't remember that we set priorities within the study. But let's get to the kickoff meeting and ask these questions.
Sure, right, I see what you're saying.
If he says, oh, I can easily do the first part of the study in the 60 days and we'll add in the rest
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
next 30
Maybe he
days,
has an
then
answer.
fine, but we don't wanna get to this point now. When I just made this statement that you agree with, that we don't wanna introduce a bias.
No, not at all.
And then say, we want you to do it your way because you're the subject matter expert, but.
But, yeah, like, that's my concern too.
Yeah, that's everybody's.
Let's do a station allocation study, but we wanna preserve the 3 stations.
Well, that's, you're gonna hear that from some people, I guarantee you.
But I think you're right, Tom. I think we could probably phrase it in such that our keen interest is really the physical structures and how and what those might look like and where they're gonna go, so.
So
That was the
I-
primary charge of the group.
And that is the
I
primary.
kinda hate to be the party pooper, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
but this is present to speak, and we're basically
Yeah,
doing committee discussion,
That's true.
which we should not be doing in
You
present
are
to speak.
correct. Thank you for
So
putting it back.
I think we probably let it go a little long on the leash.
I think you're right.
To new business.
Yeah, we can return to new business.
Actually, new business, so we can talk about.
Yeah.
We got 45 minutes.
All right, any other loose ends? Aside from the ones we already know? Cause we could move on to, conclusion. You know, this is kind of under conclusion, I guess, how we're gonna end this meeting, so we can.
yeah, looking forward to the next one, you know?
Write it
Well,
all.
I guess we should say that we are planning for a special meeting on Thursday, the 30th of January.
Right,
That'll
for
be-
the
that'll
kickoff
be here
with
as
the
well.
consultant.
And that will, yes.
Here.
No, that'll be, well, that
Well,
would.
it's planned right now.
That'll be awesome. Oh, I the kickoff.
I think if
We're
the
close
room
enough
is
here, we have the
available,
hardware here, we wanna run it under our account. And
Might
see
as well
all-
do it here.
put it up
Yeah,
for
certainly,
here.
well, we can,
And if you can't make it, you wanna be on Zoom
I
yourself.
can sit here by
and
myself.
if the rooms aren't available, we can log into the Zoom, during COVID, we were
Yes, we
logging
did
into the
all.
Zoom accounts from
Exactly,
home
all the
and
time.
starting the meetings from
From our
home.
phones and from
Right,
everything. Absolutely.
so
Yep.
if the room's not available, we can just do it all remote.
The next regular meeting is the 13th of February.
Okay, next Thursday, possible special meeting this Thursday. Very
I
good.
move we adjourn at 7:47 PM.
You got a second? All in favor?
Alright,
Aye. 7:47. Thank you all.
we're not in the sky.
Hang on, let me stop recording. Where is the recording?
Hello, Eileen, how are
Very
you?
good.
Thank you for being here. Did you get paid?